The Coalition Armament Evaluation Complex orbited the blue giant star Kepri 9 like a cathedral of steel and glass. Its testing bays were legendary, designed to endure weapons that bent gravity, folded matter, and burned through dimensions. Entire civilizations had proven their military worth inside these walls. Today, it was humanity's turn. Commander Elias Rowe stood alone at the center of Bay 12, hands resting calmly behind his back. He wore no ceremonial armor, no glowing insignia, no energy field humming around his body. Just a simple dark uniform and a faintly worn look, like someone more comfortable in the field than under observation. Across the reinforced viewport, representatives from 23 species watched. Some leaned forward with curiosity. Most radiated thinly disguised amusement. "That is, all?" asked Overseer Carix, a tall Virelian with crystalline eyes and a throat that shimmered as he spoke. "This demonstration will involve that object." A clawed appendage gestured toward the weapon resting on the table beside Rowe. It was matte black. Angular. Solid. No glowing coils. No visible power core. A firearm. Rowe nodded. Standard Terran infantry rifle. Modified for Coalition testing protocols. A ripple of translated laughter echoed through the chamber. "Chemical propulsion," scoffed a Maltari weapons savant. "Your species still relies on controlled explosions." Another observer leaned closer to their console. "There are moving parts. Friction surfaces. Mechanical stress points." Carix tilted his elongated head. "And recoil. Fascinating. You allow your weapon to fight you every time it fires?" Rowe smiled, not defensively, not proudly. Just mildly. "Yes," he said. "We do." The Virelian's chest plates flared in what passed for a grin. "Energy weapons eliminated recoil 12,000 cycles ago. Our soldiers maintain perfect accuracy without resistance." "Must be nice," Rowe replied evenly. A few observers blinked, unsure whether that was sarcasm. Carix folded his upper limbs. "Explain, Commander. Why would a developing species cling to such violent inefficiency?" Rowe glanced at the firing range beyond the bay. At the layered targets, Coalition composite armor, reactive shielding, dense synthetic mass calibrated to withstand extreme force. "Because," he said, "efficiency isn't our highest priority." "And what is?" Carix asked. Rowe stepped toward the table and picked up the rifle. The motion was casual, practiced. Familiar. Certainty. The observers murmured again, puzzled. Carix made a dismissive gesture. "Very well, human. You may proceed. We will begin by demonstrating a proper weapon, so you may observe the difference." An energy technician stepped forward, plasma caster humming to life. Rowe simply nodded and waited. He had all the time in the universe. The energy technician raised the plasma caster with ceremonial precision. The weapon was a masterpiece, sleek curves of adaptive alloy, energy veins glowing softly along its length. A low harmonic hum filled Bay 12 as its capacitors charged. Several observers straightened, expressions shifting from amusement to pride. "This model," Overseer Carix announced, "is capable of sustained fire for 6 continuous cycles without thermal degradation." The technician fired. A bolt of contained plasma screamed downrange, striking the first target, a slab of Coalition standard composite armor. Light flared white-hot. The impact zone glowed, metal liquefying and running like molten wax. Sensors spiked, then stabilized. The armor plate remained standing, scarred but intact. Polite approval rippled through the gallery. "Clean," one observer noted. "Efficient energy transfer," said another. Rowe nodded appreciatively. "Consistent. Controlled." Carix turned slightly toward him. "Your thoughts, Commander?" Rowe shifted his stance and stepped forward. "My turn." He moved to the firing line and shouldered the rifle. The observers leaned in, not with excitement, but with clinical curiosity. Some had already begun recording data, expecting to confirm their assumptions. Rowe exhaled once. Then he fired. The sound was not elegant. It was a thunderclap. A sharp, concussive crack that slammed into the chamber and echoed off reinforced walls. Several observers flinched involuntarily. The recoil drove the rifle back into Rowe's shoulder, but his posture absorbed it like a rooted pillar. Downrange, the first armor plate didn't glow. It ruptured. A clean, brutal hole punched straight through its center, no melting, no deformation. Just absence. The round didn't stop there. It tore through the secondary composite layer behind it and buried itself deep into the dense synthetic mass beyond. Silence crashed down harder than the shot. What? Carrick stepped closer to the glass, crystalline eyes narrowing. Rowe lowered the rifle. Smoke curled faintly from the barrel. That, he said calmly, was one round. Impossible, muttered a Threxian physicist. The energy output is lower than your plasma bolt, Rowe agreed. But it's focused. He tapped the side of the rifle. 40 grams of hardened alloy. High velocity. No dispersion. Carrick's voice sharpened. Fire again. Rowe adjusted his aim slightly and squeezed the trigger twice in quick succession. 2 more thunder cracks. 2 more holes, close enough that the armor plate shuddered, its structural integrity collapsing. The slab fell apart in sections, clattering against the range floor. The gallery erupted, not with laughter this time, but with frantic recalibration. Sensors screamed. Analysts whispered. Translators struggled to keep up. Carrick stared at the ruined target, mandibles no longer moving. That weapon, he said slowly, destroys rather than degrades. Rowe glanced back over his shoulder. Yes, he said. That's the idea. Rowe set the rifle to automatic. The click was quiet, but somehow louder than the gunfire that followed. Several observers shifted backward without realizing it. Commander, Carrick said carefully, continuous fire with a kinetic system is inadvisable. Thermal stress, recoil amplification. Rowe didn't look away from the range. We account for that. He squeezed the trigger. The rifle roared in a controlled burst, 3 rounds, spaced with mechanical precision. The sound wasn't just noise, it was force, slamming into the air like hammer blows. Each recoil drove into Rowe's frame, and each time he rode it, stance solid, shoulders steady. Downrange, the remaining armor didn't just fail. It disintegrated. 3 holes appeared within a span no wider than a clenched fist. Microfractures raced across the material, stress limits exceeded in an instant. The slab collapsed inward, fragments clattering uselessly to the floor. No glow. No warning. Just sudden, irreversible destruction. The observation gallery went dead silent. A Virelian analyst finally whispered, the energy didn't dissipate. No, Rowe said, safing the weapon. It stayed angry. Several translators paused, uncertain how to render that sentence. Rowe turned to face them now. You design weapons to overwhelm defenses gradually, he continued. Heat them. Drain them. Exhaust their systems. He gestured toward the ruined targets. We don't. Carrick's crystalline eyes dimmed slightly, a sign of stress. Then what is your doctrine? He asked. Rowe walked to the weapons rack along the wall. He picked up a sidearm, compact, dense. This is for when things get close, he said. This one reaches further. He indicated a longer rifle. And that, his hand rested briefly on a massive, bipod-mounted weapon, is for when something needs to stop existing over there. A low murmur rippled through the gallery. You favor excess, said a Malthari observer. Rowe shook his head. We favor margin. He lifted a single round from the table and held it up. The metal caught the light, unassuming, dense. This doesn't burn targets. It doesn't negotiate with shields. It doesn't care how advanced you are. He placed it back down with a soft click. It hits, he said. And physics does the rest. Carrick studied the human with new eyes. And the recoil? The injury risk? Rowe shrugged. We train for it. Broken bones heal. Dead soldiers don't. That landed harder than any shot. The observers weren't mocking anymore. They were recalculating. Threat matrices adjusted. Doctrines shifted. For the first time since humanity had joined the coalition, someone asked the question they should have asked from the beginning. What happens, Carrick said slowly, when humans stop holding back? Rowe met his gaze. We try very hard, he said, to make sure no one ever finds out. The firing range was sealed for 20 minutes after the last shot. Not for safety reasons, those had already been exceeded, but because no one in the observation gallery could immediately remember what to say next. Lieutenant Commander Rowe cleared the chamber with practiced efficiency, ejecting the final casing and locking the anti-material rifle open. The weapon steamed faintly, heat bleeding into the air, a reminder that even controlled brutality left scars. Behind the reinforced glass, the coalition representatives stared at the ruined drone downrange. There was no debris field to analyze. No fragments large enough to recover. Just absence. That target, one analyst finally said, voice unsteady, was rated to survive sustained orbital fire. Rowe nodded. That rating assumed dispersive damage. Carrick's crystalline limbs tightened. Your weapons do not disperse. No, Rowe agreed. They concentrate. The formal evaluation resumed in stunned silence. Data streams scrolled faster now. Ballistic models were rewritten in real time. Where earlier projections had dismissed human weapons as inefficient, new simulations painted a different picture: short engagements, catastrophic failure, minimal time for countermeasures. One by one, threat classifications changed. Crude became direct. Primitive became reliable. Outdated became dangerously sufficient. The final report was drafted within the hour. Human kinetic armaments. Assessment, technologically simple. Effectiveness, disproportionately high. Psychological impact, severe. Recommended response, avoid direct engagement. The addendum was shorter, but more telling. Do not assume restraint equals limitation. As the observers filed out, many avoided looking at the weapons display. A few paused, staring at the inert metal as if expecting it to move on its own. Carrick lingered. You evolved these, he said quietly, before leaving your planet. Yes, Rowe replied. Before energy shields. Before plasma. Before antimatter. Yes. The alien considered that. And you kept improving them anyway. Rowe finally smiled, not the polite demonstration smile, but something colder. Because the universe didn't stop being dangerous just because we learned new tricks. Later, alone in the chamber, Rowe cleaned her rifle. She wiped carbon from the barrel, checked the action, reassembled it with calm precision. Outside, diplomats would argue doctrine. Admirals would revise battle plans. Strategists would debate how a species so young had learned something so old so well. Rowe didn't care. To humans, recoil wasn't a flaw. It was honesty. A reminder that force has consequences. That survival isn't elegant. That staying alive often means hitting first, hitting hard, and making sure whatever tried to kill you doesn't get a second attempt. She locked the rifle into its case and shut it with a click. Let the galaxy have its beams and brilliance. Humans would keep their thunder. After all, physics had never betrayed them. And neither had a really, really big hole.